So today we'll be talking about real numbers, the number line, and interval notation. So first, start off with real numbers. What are the real numbers? The real numbers are all the numbers on the number line from negative infinity to infinity. And so these are things like gas prices. If you go to the store and are trying to buy something, any whole number, basically any number you'll use in algebra and pre-algebra, these are going to be real numbers and things you'll see in everyday life. And so the real numbers can be split up into two categories, which are the rational numbers and the irrational numbers. The difference is that rational numbers can be written as fractions, while the irrational numbers cannot be written as fractions. So an example of a rational number is something like 1/2, or the number 4, or something like 100/3. All those would be rational numbers. You might say, why is 4? Because that's not a fraction, but really 4 is just 4/1. So that can be written as a fraction, thus it's a rational number. Irrational numbers, they cannot be written as fractions. And so that's things like pi, which we know on is a decimal that goes forever. Things like the square root of 2, which that is, again, is a decimal that goes on forever, and thus it cannot be written as a fraction. So now we can move on to talking about the number line. I know I had referenced it earlier. So the number line is basically, you can think about it as writing a graph in 1D space. So to write it, you just draw a horizontal line with arrows on the side indicating that it goes on forever this way, goes on forever this way. And for the sake of our number line, we're going to start with the middle being 0. So this is going to be 0, and then we're going to go out, each tick being 1. So 1, 2, 3, and then right above it, you would write the numbers. So 1, 2, 3, and then going this way to the left would be negative. So again, -1, -2, -3, and then writing it above, -1, -2, and -3. So this is the basic idea of the number line. It's a horizontal line, which is basically one-dimensional. And going this way, you'll be going towards infinity, so the positive direction, and going to the left, you'll be going towards negative infinity, or the negative direction. And we'll be able to use this to mess around with real numbers and being able to understand them a little bit better. But this is the basic idea behind the number line. And so now we can get into talking about interval notation, because that uses a lot with the number line and the real numbers. So interval notation. So we can think of interval notation as a way to decide, which real numbers do we want to use for an equation, or which real numbers do we want to fit into this, let's say, formula, something like that. And so the interval notation, the real numbers are defined as from the interval -infinity to infinity, as was said earlier in the definition. And so you might be asking, what's the parentheses? What's up with that? And so basically, this can be explained as, if you're using a parenthesis or a bracket, this means that you would include it, or not include it, sorry, not include. And this would mean that you would include that number. So since infinity isn't actually a value, you would not include it. But since you might want to include, let's say if you're doing, only positive numbers and you want to include 0, you'd say from 0 to infinity. And infinity would be the open bracket, which is the parentheses, which means it's not included. So the close means it is included, which means included 0, and then the parentheses means not included. So then we can use the number line now and say, okay, we want to look at this positive numbers only, right? So here's our same graph that we had earlier. So we're going to say this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then -1, -2, -3. And we know this goes on forever in the infinity direction. This goes on forever in the negative infinity direction. So to actually show this now, we can say, okay, this is going to be from here, and we're going to indicate that it's closed, meaning that we want to use it by a closed circle, and then going on forever with an arrow like that towards infinity. So this, again, would be the closed bracket 0 all the way to infinity, which would be the parenthesis. Another example we can do is something with parentheses or open brackets. So let's say we want to look at -20 to -15, and we want those to be not included. So we would have, again, the number line going this way horizontally. And we can say this right here would be your -15. negative 16, negative 17, negative 18, negative 19, and finally negative 20. And again, we want our interval notation to look something like negative 20 to negative 15. So again, to indicate this, which means it's not included, we would do an open circle. And again, negative 15 is also not included because of the parenthesis. So that's an open circle. And then we connect them right here. So this is saying that we want to look at all numbers from negative 20 to negative 15, not including negative 20 and negative 15. So we could pick out a number like, let's say right here, negative 17.5, and that's included in our interval. But let's say negative, right here would be negative 14.5. That's not included right here, as you can see. Also, if you were to pick something like negative 15, that's not included because of the open circle.